Son-in-law opened the envelope in front of everyone. I watched his face, the way his eyes flicked down, then up, the little smile that curled at the corner of his mouth before he even read what was inside. "That's it," he said. Not to me, to my daughter. Like I wasn't standing right there holding my grandson, who had just turned 1 year old and had frosting on his chin and had no idea what was happening. My daughter. She didn't say anything. She looked at the tablecloth. He held up the paper. "Grandma got little Theo a savings certificate." He said it the way you'd say Grandma brought a fruitcake. How thoughtful. A few people laughed. Not mean laughs, nervous ones. The kind people do when they don't know what else to do. I took the paper back from his hand, folded it once, put it in my cardigan pocket. "You're right," I said. "It is thoughtful." Then I kissed my grandson on the forehead, set him back in his high chair, picked up my purse, and left. I drove home in the rain. 34 minutes. 34 minutes. I know because I counted the traffic lights. 14 of them. Something to focus on instead of the sound of that laugh still sitting in my chest. Let me go back a little. My name is Vera. I'm 68 years old. I live in a 2-bedroom house in Maplewood, New Jersey, the same house I bought in 1987 for $112,000, which I know sounds like nothing now. The gutters need replacing. The kitchen still has the original linoleum. My neighbor's dog barks every morning at 6:15, and I've made peace with it. I worked for 31 years as a medical billing specialist at Eastbrook Regional Hospital. Not a glamorous job. I sat at a desk and I processed claims and I caught errors that other people made, and I saved that hospital a considerable amount of money over the years, though nobody ever put that on a plaque. My husband Leonard died in 2009. Pancreatic cancer. 11 weeks from diagnosis to funeral. He was 59 years old. After Leonard died, I had 2 choices. Fall apart or don't. I chose don't, mostly because our daughter was 17 and needed someone functional in the house. I went back to work the Monday after the burial. My supervisor at the time, a kind woman named Pat, told me I didn't have to. I told her I did. What I didn't tell anyone. What I didn't tell my daughter. What I never told my mother before she passed. What I have told exactly one person in my life, and that person is my accountant, is that Leonard had been quietly investing since 1991. Index funds, mostly. A little real estate. Nothing flashy. He never talked about it because he said talking about money made it disappear. When the estate settled, I learned that Leonard had left behind just over $2 million. I kept living the same way. I didn't know how else to live. The linoleum stayed. I kept my hospital job. I kept clipping coupons at the grocery store on Wednesdays because that's when they doubled. I kept driving my 2004 Camry until it became a 2011 Camry and then a 2016 Camry. I kept. Meanwhile, that money sat in accounts and it grew. I added to it. Every year I put in as much as I was allowed. I reinvested. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to touch it. By the time my daughter turned 25 and married her husband, I had just over $4 million. Nobody knew. She met him at a conference. He's a corporate attorney. Good-looking in the way that men who know they're good-looking are good-looking. A little too smooth. A little too certain. His name is Derek, which I realize tells you everything and nothing at the same time. The first time I met him, he looked around my living room and said, "Cozy." The second time, he told my daughter that his family had a place on the Cape. The third time, I heard him tell someone on the phone that my daughter had come from modest circumstances, and he said it like it was a minor inconvenience she'd overcome. I smiled at every holiday. I brought things to every dinner. I kept my opinions in the pocket of my cardigan. Same place I kept everything else. My daughter, her name is Petra. She was named after a great aunt on Leonard's side. She's not a bad person. I want to be clear about that. She's smart and she works hard and she loved her father and she loves her son. But she married someone who taught her that certain things were embarrassing, and I became one of those things. Gradually. The way water finds a crack and widens it. She stopped calling as much. When she did call, it was efficient. Quick updates. She started referring to my house as Mom's place, with a slight pause before Mom's, that I can't fully describe but that you'd understand if you heard it. I told myself it was the marriage, that it wasn't really her. I don't know if I was right. For my grandson Theo's first birthday party, I made the drive out to their house in Short Hills. 3 bedrooms, 4.5 baths, a mudroom. Derek's firm had done well. The party was catered. There was a dessert table with a cake that had 3 tiers for a baby who had 6 teeth. There were people I didn't know. Derek's colleagues and their wives, everyone in linen. I wore my blue dress. The one I wear to church. I had prepared Theo's gift carefully. I had set up a custodial investment account in his name 3 weeks before the party. I had funded it with $50,000. I had printed the account summary on clean paper and put it in a card that said, "For Theo, with all my love, Grandma Vera." I didn't tell anyone what was in it. I was looking forward to the moment they would open it and understand. You know what happened next. Derek opened it, made his joke, and the table laughed. Petra looked at the tablecloth. I took the paper back and left. I sat in my car in their driveway for about 90 seconds. Not crying. Not angry, exactly. Something quieter than angry and more permanent. I took out my phone and called my accountant. His name is Stuart, and he has been managing my accounts for 11 years, and he answers on the second ring. "It's Vera," I said. "Vera, everything all right? I need to make some changes." "What kind of changes?" "The custodial account I opened for Theodore. I need to restructure it. And I need to remove the designation I had in my estate documents, the one that passed assets through Petra. I want to go around her entirely. Everything goes to Theodore directly, in trust, controlled by the trustee until he's 30. There was a pause. "That's significant." "I know. Do you want to think about it over the weekend?" "I've thought about it in the car," I said. "That's enough. Stuart said he'd call his attorney contact first thing Monday." I thanked him and hung up. I sat there another 30 seconds looking at their front door. Then I drove home through the rain and counted 14 traffic lights. The first thing to understand is what I was actually paying for. Petra and Derek had bought their house in Short Hills 2 years before. The down payment had been $300,000. I had given Petra $200,000 of that as a gift, official, documented gift letter signed for the mortgage, because she asked and because she was my daughter and because I could. She had not told Derek where the money came from. When I found this out later, from something she let slip on the phone. I sat very still for a moment. She had let him believe it was money from Leonard's life insurance, which was true in the sense that the money I had was money I had because Leonard died, but not true in any way that mattered. Derek did not know I had money. As far as he knew, I was a retired hospital worker living in a small house in Maplewood, which was true, and that was the entire picture he had of me. The fruitcake lady. The blue dress at Christmas. Beyond the down payment, there were other things. Theo's au pair. I had been quietly contributing to that expense every month. Transferred to Petra's account. No notes in the memo line. The family trip to Italy the previous summer. I pay for Petra's and Theo's flights because Derek made a comment at Easter that budget travel with a baby isn't ideal, and Petra had looked at her plate. I had paid. I didn't say anything. I realized sitting in my kitchen that Monday morning with my coffee, subsidizing a life that was embarrassed by me. I called Stuart back to make sure he'd received the documents from the attorney. He had. We reviewed everything. The custodial account would be converted to an irrevocable trust. Theo would receive access to it at 30, or earlier for education expenses, which would be paid directly to the institution. Petra and Derek would not be trustees. I named Stuart as trustee. If Stuart was unable to serve, I named a trust company. Everything in my estate that I had previously designated to pass through Petra would now bypass her entirely. She would receive a small direct bequest, enough to know I hadn't forgotten her. The rest went to Theo. The monthly contributions to Petra's account stopped that week. The Italy flights. There was nothing to undo there. But there would be no future trips. I didn't call her. I didn't explain. I went to my Tuesday yoga class, and I raked the leaves in my backyard, and I had lunch with my friend Gloria from the old hospital days. And I did not tell Gloria any of it because Gloria is a talker, and this wasn't Gloria's story. The first sign that something had shifted came about 6 weeks later. Petra called on a Thursday evening. I could tell from the opening of the call that she'd had the conversation with Derek about money before she dialed. "Mom," she said, "I just wanted to check in." "Hello, sweetheart. I feel like we haven't talked in a while." We had talked 12 days before, briefly, because I had called to ask about Theo's ear infection. But I let it go. We talked about nothing for a few minutes. The weather, Theo's new words, something about her office. Then she said, "I noticed the usual transfer didn't come this month." I took a sip of my tea. "No, it didn't." Silence. "Is everything okay? Financially?" "Everything's fine," I said. "I've been restructuring some things." "Restructuring?" Another pause. "Should I be worried? About me?" "No, I'm perfectly fine." She didn't know how to push further without saying what she actually wanted to say, which was, "Are you still giving us money?" And she couldn't say that. So the conversation ended a few minutes later, and she said she'd talk to me soon, and I said I'd look forward to it. I washed my teacup and went to bed. Derek called me directly 3 weeks after that. This was unusual enough that I looked at my phone twice before answering. In 8 years of marriage to my daughter, Derek had never called me directly. Not once. Vera, he said. He uses my first name. He has since the beginning, which I was told to take as a sign of respect for my generation, not informality. I never believed that. Derek. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. You're not. Good. Good. He cleared his throat. Listen, Petra mentioned that you've been reevaluating some things financially. I just wanted to reach out man to man. He caught himself, person to person, to make sure we're all on the same page. What page is that? Well, another throat clearing. We're family, and family looks out for each other. I waited. The thing is, he continued, we have some expenses coming up. The house needs work. Theo's starting in a new program at the Learning Center in the fall. We'd planned around certain expectations. I understand, I said, so you can imagine when things shift unexpectedly. Derek, I said. At Theo's birthday party, you held up the gift I gave my grandson, and you made a joke about it in front of your guests. Complete silence. My daughter didn't say anything. No one apologized. I drove home alone. He started to speak. I continued. I gave Theo a custodial investment account. The opening contribution was $50,000. You made a joke about it because you didn't know what was in the envelope, and that's your right. But you also didn't ask. You assumed. And your assumption told me something. I could hear him breathing. The transfers to Petra will not be resuming, I said. The account I set up for Theo is still there. It's actually been restructured into something better for him. He'll have access to it when he's an adult and can make his own decisions. Vera, if you'd like to talk to my accountant about the details, his name is Stuart Kaminsky. I'll let him know to expect your call. I paused. Goodbye, Derek. Tell Petra I said hello. I hung up. Then I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. Not triumphant. Not sad. Something in between that doesn't really have a name. Something like settled. Petra came to my house on a Saturday in November. She came alone. She didn't call first, which she never does, which is something that has always annoyed me and which I have never said. She knocked twice, and when I opened the door, she looked like she had been preparing something to say and had already lost it. Come in, I said. I made soup. She sat at my kitchen table, the same table she did homework at, the same table we ate Christmas dinner at after Leonard died, just the two of us with too much food. And she held her coffee mug with both hands, and she didn't look at me for a while. Derek told me what you said, she finally said. I assumed he would. Was it true? The $50,000? Yes. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were wet. Mom? Don't apologize for him, I said. I'm not asking for that. I'm apologize for him, I said. I'm apologizing for me, she said. I sat there, you left, and I sat there and I didn't go after you. I looked at her. My daughter. She has Leonard's eyes, which still catches me sometimes. I know, I said. I didn't know about the money. I knew you had. I knew you were comfortable. I just didn't know. It doesn't matter what the amount was, I said. That's not the point. I know. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. He's been difficult lately. About money. About the house. I've been trying to manage it, and I froze. I didn't say anything to that. Not because I was withholding, but because I was listening. I should have gone after you, she said. I should have said something. Yes, I said. You should have said something. Yes, I said. You should have. We sat with that for a moment. Outside, my neighbor's dog started barking at something. The account is still there, I said finally. For Theo. It's in a trust now, which is actually better protection for him. When he's old enough to understand money, I want him to know that someone who loved him put something there for him and kept it safe. Petra nodded. Her jaw was tight. As for you and me, I said, we'll be okay. We've been through harder. She reached across the table and took my hand. Neither of us said anything. I let the soup simmer. That was 8 months ago. Petra and Derek are still married. I don't know the inside of that. And I don't ask. I have Sunday dinners with Petra and Theo twice a month. Derek comes sometimes. He is polite to me now in a way that is different from before. More careful. Less comfortable. I think that's probably the right distance. He has never apologized directly. I have not asked him to. Theo is walking now. He has 9 words, and 3 of them he learned at my kitchen table, and 1 of them is Gamma, which is close enough. The trust is fully funded. Stuart sends me quarterly statements that I read at the kitchen table with my morning coffee and put in the fireproof box in my closet next to Leonard's watch and the deed to this house and the original savings certificates from 1991 that started all of this. Still in the folder where Leonard left them, still in his handwriting on the tab. I still drive a Camry. The gutters still need replacing. My neighbor's dog still barks at 6:15. I'm not telling this story to make myself into something I'm not. I made mistakes too. I should have told Petra years ago what we had, what her father built, what I kept building. I let her believe something smaller than the truth because it was easier, and then I was surprised when she and her husband saw me small. That's on me. I can hold that. But the moment at that birthday table, Derek's little smile, the paper in his hand, the joke, the laughter. I don't regret walking out. I don't regret the phone call to Stuart. I don't regret restructuring. What I kept was not for him. What I built was never for him. It was for that baby with frosting on his chin, who had no idea that his grandmother was standing in the room watching, adding it all up, deciding what she owed and to whom. He'll know someday, when he's 30, or when he needs school paid for, or when he's sitting in some attorney's office being told his name is on something. He'll know that someone was paying attention the whole time. That's all I wanted. That's always all I wanted. I've thought a lot about what I could have done differently. Not at the party. I'm at peace with walking out of that party. But before it. Years before it. I kept a secret for a long time because I told myself it was humble. That living below what I had was a form of integrity. And maybe it was for a while. But somewhere along the way, the silence stopped being humble and started being a wall. And walls don't just keep things out. They keep things in, including the truth about who you are and what you've built and what you actually have to offer the people you love. Derek laughed at that envelope because he had no information to do anything else. He saw a woman in a blue dress who drove an old Camry and lived in a house with original linoleum, and he made a calculation, and his calculation told him the envelope contained nothing worth taking seriously. He wasn't entirely wrong to use the information he had. He was wrong about what it meant, but I had given him no reason to think otherwise. That's the part that took me a while to sit with. Not his behavior. That told me everything I needed to know about his character. And character reveals itself. It doesn't need my help. But my own role in building the conditions for that moment. I had been so careful to stay small that I had accidentally taught the people around me that small was all I was. My daughter froze at that table because she had been living between two versions of me for years. The mother she grew up with and the mother she was slowly starting to suspect existed. And she hadn't figured out how to hold both of them. I don't excuse what she did. Sitting there while your mother is humiliated is a choice, even if it doesn't feel like one in the moment. But I understand it better than I did driving home in the rain. What I know now is that integrity isn't just about how you treat your money. It's about honesty, real honesty, not the performance of modesty, but the actual willingness to let people see you clearly so they can respond to what's real. I withheld the truth thinking I was protecting something. What I was actually doing was making it impossible for anyone to truly respect me. Because respect requires accurate information. The account I set up for Theo is still there, growing quietly. He'll find out about it when he's old enough to understand that wealth isn't what you spend, it's what you protect and what you choose to pass forward. I want him to understand that his grandmother worked 31 years at a desk most people walked past without looking, and that she built something real, and that she kept it real by not letting anyone, including herself, lose track of what it was actually for. Theo is 1 year old. He has 9 words and frosting preferences and no idea any of this happened. But someday he'll be 30, sitting in some attorney's office, and he'll learn that someone paid attention, that someone held the line. Not out of stubbornness, not out of spite, but because some things are worth protecting even when, especially when, no one else in the room knows their value. That's what I want him to carry. Not the money. The understanding that quiet, consistent choices made over a long time are the most powerful thing a person can do. You don't need to announce what you're building. You just have to keep building it. I'm still building.